Hello friends, welcome to Simple Technical Solutions. I am Sunrit Hazra, and in today's tutorial I will show you how to use the Wireframe Modifier in Blender. The Wireframe Modifier is a powerful tool for turning your 3D models into a wireframe structure, creating styled effects, low poly meshes, and even intricate designs. Whether you're creating an abstract piece, working on game assets, or looking to add a unique touch to your models, this modifier will definitely come in handy. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now let's open up Blender, and in Blender we have all the default things around, and now we can get started with our wireframe modifier. But before starting, let's know exactly what is wireframe modifier. Generally, wireframe modifier is a tool used to convert a 3D object's surface into a wireframe mesh, meaning only the edges and the vertices are visible, with the faces typically being hollow. This modifier can create an effect that highlights the structure of an object, and is extremely useful while creating skeletal or cage-like models. And now next we are going to apply the wireframe modifier to this cube. So let's select this cube, and then we will go to modifier in properties, then we will click on add modifier, and then we will simply search for wireframe and press enter. And now our wireframe modifier has been applied to our cube. Next we are going to talk about modifying all the properties in this wireframe modifier, but before that let's set up the scene by changing the render engine to cycles. Now let's add a light to our scene. By pressing Shift A, I'm going to add an area light. Now let's select the object and get back to the modifier properties and go through each one by one. Now let's cover up each topic one by one. So first we got thickness. This thickness setting controls how thick the edges of the wireframe are. It determines the width of the lines that replace the faces of the original object. So this is how it changes the view of our object. See, if you are increasing the thickness, obviously this cube is getting more thicker with the edges. So I'm going to keep like 0.1 thickness. You can make the wireframe very thin or thick depending on the look you want to achieve. Now next we got offset. This offset option controls the position of the wireframe relative to the original mesh. A positive value moves the wireframe outward and a negative value moves it inward. So what does it mean? If you are increasing the offset, then it is going outwards, and if you are decreasing it, it is coming inwards. By default, the offset is at 0, and if you are increasing the thickness a lot, then you can see what is the difference on the object. If you are increasing it positively, see, the object is getting bigger, and if we are making it negative in value, then see what happens to the object. I am going to keep 0 offset and of course 0.1 thickness as I have kept before. Now next we get boundary. This boundary are edges treated differently from the internal edges of the mesh. The concept of boundary is important for controlling how much the edges of a mesh interact with each other when converted to a wireframe. Now next we get replace original. By default this is selected, and this removes original geometry if we are turning this on. If you are turning this on, it replaces the original geometry. See, this wireframe is being applied but the original geometry is still there. So if you are turning this on, the original geometry is being removed. Now next we get even. This even thickness option ensures that all the edges of the wireframe have the same width regardless of the geometry or size of the original faces. So if you are turning this on, you can see that everything gets even. This option smooths out the wireframe and keeps the thickness consistent across the entire object. For this cube, this might not even look like any change, but for other shapes like a sphere, this really gives a lot of shape change. And then we are getting relative thickness. This scales the offset by the surrounding geometry. If you are giving relative thickness, it is a little different from even thickness. And if you are removing both, you can see what is the result. So next we get crease edges. This crease option is used to maintain sharp edges in the wireframe, preventing them from being smoothed out. You can decrease or increase the value if you want, but this will only influence your object once it is turned on, and if it is turned off, then it will not change any look of your object. Next we get material offset. This material offset is a setting that allows you to control which material is applied to the different parts of the object. It determines how materials are assigned to the edges and faces of the mesh after the modifier is applied. Now we have next vertex group. Vertex group is a way to organize the group and specific vertices of a mesh to apply different modifiers, influences, or properties selectively. It is commonly used in scenarios like weight painting for rigging, selecting certain parts of a mesh for modifiers, or controlling which vertices are affected by certain actions. For now, let's just not get into this and let's focus on creating the scene. This cube that we have in our scene is going to be the central core of what we are trying to achieve. So I'm trying to make an abstract scene where there are going to be a lot of cage-like structures, wireframe structures that will be inside of others. So this is what I'm referring to. So let's press Shift A and add a cube. Let's scale it up. Now let's get to edit mode. And now I'm going to subdivide this. Let's give it like 2 subdivision, and then I'm going to give a little smoothness. Now let's get back, and now I will give wireframe modifier to this. This looks very good now. Now let's add something more. Let's add a UV sphere. Now let's scale it up, and now I will sculpt it. Let's turn on Dyntopo. Let's get back, and now I will apply wireframe modifier to this. Let's keep the thickness very low, and at this point you cannot even see what is inside, but still I'm going to add something more like a monkey. Now without making any change to the geometry, I'm just going to give wireframe modifier to this. This looks really weird, but still let's continue, and now this time I'm going to give a rock. So let's press Shift A, and now let's give rock generator. I'm going to make it really detailed and really deformed with a lot of roughness, also smoothened. Now let's scale it up. Now a monkey is inside the rock. Well, it's getting out of our view, so let's make some changes. Now let's give wireframe modifier to this. Let's apply all. Now let's set up our camera by pressing Ctrl Alt 0. We need to change some properties of our camera. Let's give the clip end at 10,000. Now in this, our monkey is not being highlighted, but if you are changing to rendered view, let's see if the monkey is being highlighted or not. After giving an HDRI and some more materials, let's see how our scene looks like. So this is how our scene looks like. So that was all for today. Hope you liked this video and learned something new. Thanks for watching.